there, guys. All right, so in this video, I'm going to quickly just go over the circulation through the heart and to the body. So hopefully at this point, you are familiar with the anatomy of the heart. So I'm just going to go back to page 14. I'm in our notes booklet. You need to be very familiar with all of the terms here. You need to be aware here, I hope you figured this out at this point, that the right side of the heart on a diagram is actually on your left side. The reason this is, imagine there was a person lying on that paper looking at you. Their right side would be on your left side. So that's kind of how a lot of anatomical diagrams work. So we have our atrium at the top two chambers, ventricle at the bottom two chambers. The atria and ventricles are separated by the AV valves, and the ventricles and the surrounding blood vessels, the aorta and the pulmonary arteries, and they are separated by the semilunar valves. So I'm going to assume you know all of these terms. I'm just going to walk you through the blood flow, connecting the pulmonary circuits and the systemic circuits. So we know that pulmonary circulation is dealing with blood flow from the heart to the lungs. The point there is for the blood to get oxygenated and to kind of connect the respiratory and circulatory systems. And the systemic circulation is where the blood gets dropped off to the body and delivers oxygenated blood to our tissues. Okay, so it's pretty clear in this diagram what is considered deoxygenated blood and what is considered oxygenated based on the red and blue. So when we're talking about circulation, please know it is not just a kind of pathway that I'm going to show you. All of the blood is obviously traveling at the same time, but you've got to start somewhere. So I'm going to start at the vena cava and just show you how blood goes kind of through the heart. And I'll talk that through, and then we'll complete the stop and think together. Okay, so if I were to start at the superior and inferior vena cava. So blood is traveling from the lower body. The veins will collect the deoxygenated blood from the lower body. Veins will connect the deoxygenated blood from the upper body, and it will dump into these larger vena cavas. From there, blood dumps into the right atria, or a right atrium, I guess I should say. All right, blood at this point is deoxygenated. It is then going to travel across the tricuspid atrioventricular valve into the right ventricle. When the right ventricle pumps, it's going to cross the pulmonary valve into the pulmonary artery. That pulmonary artery branches into a right and left pulmonary artery. This can be considered actually the pulmonary trunk. All right, that's going to take it over to the right and left lung. So this would actually be the right lung. That would be the left lung. At the lungs, we know, based on our learning of the respiratory system, that's where gas exchange takes place. So the blood is actually going to pick up oxygen from the alveoli, and the blood is going to drop off carbon dioxide. Okay, that blood then, so this is within the capillaries of the lungs surrounding the alveoli. Once it has oxygenated, it is going to be returning back to the heart through the pulmonary veins. Now notice how the pulmonary arteries only have one vessel going towards the lungs. When they're returning from the lungs, there are two separate vessels. So the pulmonary veins dump into the left atrium. Then they cross the atrioventricular valve. That's going to be the mitral valve into the left ventricle. Then it's going to pump across the semilunar valve, across the aortic valve, into the aorta. The aorta is then going to kind of branch off into smaller and smaller vessels, carrying that oxygenated blood to our upper and lower body. This is now considered systemic circulation. Of course, at the level of the tissues, that oxygenated blood is going to drop off its oxygen to give to our cells in order for them to complete cellular respiration. And it's going to pick up carbon dioxide as waste, and then it's going to connect back to the venous system and back to our vena cava, and the system will start over again. So let's just write that out in words. So I'm going to do my best here to write as neat as possible. We all know that goes badly. And let's walk through all of the structures. So if we were to start with the vena cava, and I'm going to kind of shorthand a couple things. Deoxygenated blood gets dumped into the right atria. Then it goes across the tricuspid valve. Into the right ventricle, where it then goes across the pulmonary valve. And then into the pulmonary artery. Where it gets taken to the lungs, where gases get exchanged in the capillaries of the lungs. So at this point, the blood is going to kind of pick up oxygen. Okay, then it's going to start returning back to the heart via the pulmonary veins, where it's going to be dumped into the left atrium. I'm going to run a room here, then it's going to cross the mitral valve, and it's going to enter into the left ventricle, and then it's going to cross the aortic valve, where it will then enter into the aorta, where it will be carried to our body tissues, where gas exchange will take place at the capillaries, where the blood is going to drop off its oxygen and pick up carbon dioxide. And at that point, the venous system will then basically circulate this back, and it would start back at the vena cava. All right, no, that was a little bit messy, but that's what I was looking there for, that answer. All right, take care.